Today on Geek Shop, we're making New Year's resolutions that we might break. So, let's take a walk to the Geek Shop.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Geek Shop. Joining me today is Chris. Say hi, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
So, today we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions like everyone else does. And we're going to talk about art-wise, comic-wise, creativity-wise, right?
Yeah, like what we're going to do over what we want to have done in the next year, I think is going to be what this episode is about. You know, what creatively we want to accomplish, what we're hoping to do, but it won't necessarily happen. And then maybe even just some fun things like maybe any books you want to read or anything like that, or things that sort of help with your creativity that you might be doing this year to try and improve it. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Well, first of all, unlike those diet resolutions and all that stuff, we have each other and our creative community to push us to make sure we meet our resolution.
Oh no. I suddenly regret coming up with this idea for our show.
See, at least, we have people pushing us now. And we have this YouTube channel to make sure that we do something now.
Yeah, and maybe what we can do this year is we can add a new segment to the end of our episodes and talk about where we stand with our New Year's, our sort of yearly updates. So maybe every once in a while, maybe not every episode, but every few episodes, maybe we'll sort of go, hey, and I managed to get this book done, or hey, I inked this, or
yes.
As part of your New Year's resolution. So we'll have a list. Maybe we'll make a list and post it on social media after we're finished this, and we'll list all of our New Year's resolutions that we've suggested.
Wait,
and then,
hold on. So you said a resolution for creating comics, art, and whatever. Now you want me to make a list? That's another resolution.
I'll make the list because I'll be editing this. So I will make the list and post it.
You make the list.
I'll make the lists and post it based off what our conversation today, and then
yes.
I'll post it online. And every time we get something done, I'll repost it with a check mark.
Yes,
as to what's been completed.
Yes.
So
and we'll have a what do you call it? PowerPoint flow chart to point out where we're at in our progress.
As long as we can have a section in that in our thing about napping time. How much did we nap this year? Because that's important.
Oh no, that can't be included.
It has to be. It's most of my life.
Okay, so you start your resolution.
Okay, so the main thing that I want to do creatively before the year is over is finish chapter 4 of Blue Orchid. So that's the first collection. So it was chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to be one that I'm going to smush into a graphic novel along with a bunch of other extra content. And I want to have that done by the end of this year. So right now I'm inking chapter 3. So I want to have chapter 4 written and drawn as well. And then I'm going to have about probably 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 sub-stories. Some have been done, some haven't. That will also be included. So I want to have this graphic novel done, hopefully ready to print by the end of the year, but at least I want the artwork and everything done. And maybe like as a 2026 release, I'll have the graphic novel. But
nice.
So that's the big project.
An average page count is what, 40 pages for your book?
Well, no, the book, each issue is about 20 to 30 pages.
Oh, okay. So for, let's say, give a rough deadline, let's say October to finish your book 4. That's a reasonable deadline.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a reasonable deadline, and it'll keep me busy, but it won't make me go insane. So, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously, if things get in the way, things do. But that's the thing I'd like to do is have by the end of the year have the graphic novel ready to go, or even already done if I can by then.
Oh, nice.
So, what's other than that? The only other thing I can announce, well, I got lots going on with my life in this next year, so it'll be interesting to see how that fits in with this. But because I have a major thing happening in about 6 months here, which I can't really talk about yet. I'll talk about at some point. So I have to have a lot of the drawing done in actually 6 months and then start coloring and laying out. So I have this sort of, I'm pushing a lot of my artwork forward.
Oh, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Again, depends on how life goes too, but that's my major goal. So
what about reading? Reading new books, new comics? Anything in particular you have in mind?
I just started a book, and it's part of a series, and I'm going to I want to, Sapien. Have you heard of this book,
No,
Sapien?
no.
So it's based on a book. It's by a scientist it's a historian who does this whole thing of the history of Homo sapiens, like, why we're not Neanderthals, how extinction worked, how we developed tools, sort of this whole cognitive revolution.
Oh, nice.
It's a science book, and he did an entire series. He wrote a book first, and the book became really popular, and then they adapted it into a comic book, like a graphic novel. And I started reading it, and I'd love to finish the entire series. I'd love to get that done. It's really deep and really sort of scientific, and it goes into like the whole science of how we work our brains, and the idea of like what's reality and what isn't, as far as like what do we create and what is actually natural to us, and everything like that. Like, it's a really deep thing, but the way that they did it in the comic book is really fun, because it's not just a dude telling you about this and sort of explaining to you with pictures, but he actually, like, every once in a while they turn it into like a game show. So it'll be like Neanderthal versus Homo sapien, and like a Survivor type thing.
Oh, wow.
And they sort of illustrate it like that. So it's really, they do it in a really fun way. And so I'm partway through the first book right now, but I want to try and finish that. And it's very inspiring, and it's very different than anything I do.
Now,
so it's
question
nice.
for you. You said it's a comic form. Is it manga, or is it a North American comic, or European?
It's probably closer to European, maybe North American indie comic, like that
nice.
level. So it's not like, superhero-ish. It's more sort of, scratchy and kind of fun and pretty cool. I recommend checking it out. It's one of those graphic novels that's sort of gotten to the normal book scene, like regular book readers and New York Times and everything are calling it like this great book. So it's sort of like Mao's and some of the other sort of comic books.
So post the image on the site here. For
sure. And we'll even have a link in the YouTube to buy a copy. So we'll post an Amazon link on there.
Perfect.
So I'll set that up. But it's like, it's a really good book. I haven't been reading much lately, comic books, just because I've been working on them. So I actually got this one for Christmas, and from Allison, my lovely wife. She picked it up for me, and it was perfect. And I told her about it because I had heard about it. But now that I've actually read it, I'm really into it. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and how about you? What's your big project?
Right now, I'm trying to finish up our book we started last year. So now I think there's about 4 stories to be finished for book 1, which will be about 150 pages, which is a lot of pages. Once that's finished, I'm starting to, this weekend I was planning to start on laying out the book 2, the conclusion of the storyline. So so that's my goal. And I have another side project which I've been meaning to do for the last few years that I've been wanting to do, and I had an opportunity earlier this summer. A gentleman named Chris Wunderlich publishes a book called Wonderlit magazine, and he asked me he wanted to do a comic version of that magazine, and he asked me to do a 4-page story in it, non-traditional, comic story. And I did a sci-fi story. So, and that gave me ideas to do another story. And I was just like, you know what, that would be fun to do. Get away, do something totally different. So, again, those are ideas right now, and see 6 months to a year from now how much I finish on that. But the main concern is finishing Tic Toc Tom book 2.
Okay. So, Tic Toc Tom, the 1 and 2, finish off 1, and then get 2 rolling, and then also this extra side project, which I've seen bits of it. You posted on social media, and I had seen you sent me some of the art when you were working on it. So
yes.
I've seen it, so I look forward to that, because that's kind of interesting, and the way the art style of it is very sort of, it's a lot tighter than you normally do, and almost more painterly than you normally do.
You know what? Because when I was talking to Chris, who does that book, um, we're talking about what type, because this is the first time he's done a full comic issue of his magazine. So, and he does a magazine, everything from art, music, anything. And he said, he want to go back, he want to have a, what do you call it, alternative, heavy metal type of a feel to it. And that's what I was thinking, you know what? I pulled out some of my heavy metals and looking through it and going, you know what? I haven't done that type of art in a long, long time. And it
Yeah,
was interesting.
I
It was a challenge, but it was fun.
yeah, and I guess if you haven't done it in a long time, now that you're doing it digitally, it has some advantages to it as well, in that you're not cleaning up your paints afterwards.
Well, the funny part is, I did the first page all in marker and colored pencils.
Wow.
Then, then I had issues with certain areas coloring it. So then I put that aside and recolored it all digitally on the computer. Now, mind you, what deadline for that, submission for that story, made me not redo it by hand because I was thinking, you know what, I hate to say that, drawing a page won't take me that long.
Yeah,
Coloring will take me 5 times longer.
I
So
understand that.
I'm not a color person.
Yeah, yeah. I totally get that. Totally makes sense. I'm
But
not a color person either, but
like everyone else, you know what? One day I do want to sit down and figure out how to use watercolors, play with my markers and colored pencils.
you can always save that for pinups and covers at this point.
Yes, but you know what? It would be fun to do a full comic story. You know, it'd be a challenge.
Would you do that for this new idea, this new story you're doing?
I was thinking about it.
That's interesting. I'd like to see
I,
that.
I was thinking about it, so I'm thinking, you know what? It'd be challenging and see what I could do with it.
Makes sense. It works. That's pretty good. And how about reading? What are you reading?
Reading wise, I have a couple of books I've had for a while, which I need to finish. And it's an excuse, but for comic wise, I still need to finish Grant Morrison's Green Lantern run. I've read. I'm at the last book, and I haven't started. I cracked it open, read the first part, maybe 10, 15 pages, and things came up, put it aside, never finished it. So that's my goal.
Okay.
And mentioning Grant Morrison, during the summertime, I bought the Invisibles series omnibus, which is like what, almost 2,000 pages or whatever.
It's a
And
lot.
I want to sit down and reread that again. Just I want to. My goal is, and when I first bought it, I posted saying, I want to reread this all in one sitting.
Wow. That's a day.
Well, reason is because I don't know if you read The Invisibles, and it's just a complex story, and it just I still haven't figured that story out yet.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
Which is good because you know what that means for me it's a good story because it wants me to reread it again and look at all the details the artists and the writers put in and see what happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've had a few. There's a few books I've had where I've reread them a couple times and sort of been like, oh, okay, and so that's what they were going with, or you kind of pick up on smaller details that actually become important later. So
And to be honest, I mean, I'm guilty of this, and I want to get back into. I haven't done this in a while, and I'm guilty. There's no excuses for it. But even read some new sci-fi novels.
fair
Real
enough.
books, real books.
Real book. Not
Yes,
these kids' books that we read.
yes, that's
You want to
it.
read a real book.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about sort of the big projects that we have planned. We talked about our reading, but the one thing I want to know is, what are you going to do to become a sort of a better artist? Like, is there any little projects that you have? Like, I noticed on your Instagram that you sort of started this drawing project that you started a while back and have started it up again. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, what I started, this was before, I mean, we were doing those, what do you call it, Inktober type of prompts. drawing prompts and stuff like that. And was it last year or year before? I thought, you know what? Why do it for Inktober? Just randomly just do it again. So then last year, what I started was, or earlier this year, I just said, you know what? Just start doing random drawings a day or every other day or whatever on things I like. Everything from comic books, movies, music, anything, video games. And like last one I did was, I think it was Green Lantern and Superman. Then
Yeah.
I did Tank Girl. Then I did, things like that. So it's just something to do. And honestly, it just, I don't spend much time on it. I mean, maybe an hour and that's it. It's just a quick. My way of thinking is, it's the old, the younger me. Sorry, the younger me would have gone, bought a sketchbook and would have sketched it out in a sketchbook as on the bus or coffee shop or whatever. So this that same type of thinking, going, you know what, try and do a drawing a day and see what happens. And you know what, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just draw it, post it.
Yep. Yeah, a big part of that is posting it, like, because I think it helps people to occasionally see you do a bad drawing. It helps it to sort of, and it helps you to finish it too, because one of the things I found, I do that every once in a while too, where I'll get into these things. I'm actually starting in January 1st. I'm going to be posting a few. I do it pretty regularly though. I generally post 1 or 2 drawings a week. I do my process of drawing it as well as the actual finished drawing, and I find that the pressure of having to post it, even if it's not going great, you'll be pushed a little bit to finish it.
Yes.
And that's kind of cool. That's kind of important. So I think that's a good. That's a good project. I'm doing something similar too, but yours is like intense, and I love the characters you're doing too. So it's great.
No, but like I said, it's the movies, books, and comics and characters I like. And honestly, some of it is just where, I'll do a quick sketch and I'll do like, really rough thumbnail and just try and ink it. Yeah. And, and like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect. You know what? Just get it, just do it and that's it. And, and even the coloring. Sometimes you'll look at the color gun, that's off. But you know what? Screw it, post it. It's just, and the key thing in which if anyone else wants to do something like this, I'll post some of the images, but the key thing is just draw, make it quick, and that's it. It just don't overwork it.
Yeah. One of the things that frustrates me about Inktober is that it's only in October. And I find that there's this sort of pressure on our artists to be like, well, in October, you have to do this manic, you have to draw all the time and post it and share it. And I'm thinking kind of like, why don't we do that all year round? And I'm not saying like every single day, but at least the idea of like, hey, do a drawing every day and post it. Like, get it out there, show your friends, whatever.
See, that's why I did that. I was just like, you know what? Just do it. And I think I started this in like July or something September, and I was thinking, you know what? Just do it randomly. Then the Inktober, reason I stopped on that was we did our own Inktober prompt thing for Tic Toc Tom, and then afterwards I was thinking, you know what, let's just continue this, and again, during the holidays I posted like 3 images in one day because I was just like, you know what, I did 3 drawings in that one day.
Yeah.
And sometimes, but here's the thing, this, and we had this talk about the artist block thing. Sometimes, I could do 3-4 drawings in a day. Then for another 2 days, I can't do anything.
Exactly. You can always just spread them out and be like, hey, this is my 3 days. As long as the math works out, you're fine.
That's it. Yes. But the key thing is just being creative.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about doing that sort of thing too is sometimes what I want to draw, like with Inktober, I find the prompts are sometimes stressful / it's not where my brain is at, and so I feel uncomfortable. Whereas when it's sort of freeform, like I did a drawing which I'm going to post probably sometime in the new year of I was watching a Powerpuff Girls, and I did a drawing of Mojo Jojo the monkey, and like the only reason I got inspired to do that was because I was watching Powerpuff Girls, and so it just sort of came out of my brain. So I find that one of the great things about this sort of thing is when you don't have this like the pressure of like, okay, well today I've got to draw this. It's more like you're sitting, you're reading a comic, you're watching some cartoons, and whatever that makes you feel like drawing, you draw.
See, there's a good side and bad side to that also. Sometimes you want to do like what you just mentioned about the Powerpuff Girls thing is, that's how I did the Booster Gold drawing. And I was looking at something, I go, reading something on Booster Gold. I go, oh yeah, I used to love his comics, so I drew him. But on the other hand, sometimes if you have a prompt, let's say, what we did where we mentioned certain things to draw, it might get you thinking, because sometimes you're, that whole thing we talked about in our artist block thing where you're staring at the blank sheet of paper.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to do something, but there's no ideas coming. But then when Chris Stewart comes up and says, hey, let's do a thing of Superman. And you go, hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to do Superman fighting Bizarro.
It's true. It is true. I guess it's sort of the nice thing about doing it on your own, I guess, is you have both. So you have like the option of asking somebody for a prompt, or you have also the option of just sort of like, hey, this inspired me right now, let's do it.
I mean, the bottom line is, you know what? It's just something to keep me busy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, it's either that or not saying that I'm going to sit around and watch YouTube videos or watch TV or something like that, or, I should be reading my comics or my books and stuff, but, it's something to keep, it's just sitting there and, just start. Bottom line is keeping me busy and keeping me creative.
Yeah, that's important. For sure. And the nice thing is everybody has different ways of doing it. So it's like whatever works for you is the best way to do it. If getting prompts works for you, great. If just clearing out your brain works for you, that's great too. So it is just a question of keep yourself busy and keep your brain creating stuff all the time. So.
Oh, that's it. It's like, my desk area, I'm sitting here, and I'm just going to mention one thing, is every time I come by, I have sheets of paper on my desk where I do coloring or this and that. And once in a while I'll come up and I see my daughter sketching on the paper.
Yep.
So it's, and it's the same type of thinking. It's like, what? You have that paper, draw.
Yep.
And it's, and whether it's a tablet or a piece of paper, just, what? Again, it's, just jot down, anything. Even if it's stick figures, who cares?
Yeah, I was actually doing a lesson on comic books. I have somebody I'm tutoring right now on comic book creation, and he was asking me about like where do you start, and I'm like, just start with Stickman, like and like just draw, and it's like it's sometimes it's like pulling teeth. I know people like you and me are like if we don't draw if we take 2 or 3 days off from drawing, we're like it's like a craving, we have to get back to it. But other people, it takes a bit of, it's amazing to get them warmed up and started. And they think that Stickman isn't the way to go. But I always tell people, it's like, that's where everybody starts. So you have to start there. So.
But see, that's a good point you made. I think with a lot of people, it's that jump start they need. And, you and I have been in that same boat where you need that kickstart, someone to kick you and say, hey, get going. Once you get going, you don't want to stop.
It's true. It's very true, and it's it's and like to be honest, I'm sort of doing the same thing where I'm going to try and do more I'm going to try and draw more characters that don't belong to me. So I do a lot of times I draw my own characters over and over again, but I'm going to try every once in a while, a couple times a week to draw somebody else's characters in my style or in a different style or whatever. But that's something that I do a bit. I get into these phases where I'll do it, but I'm going to try and do it even more this year and draw, characters that look cool. Even if I don't like the character as a comic book, there's a few of those out there. Just characters that look cool and just keep drawing them. So, I'll tell you, my favorite character to draw that I've tried to read the comic books and I just can't stand them is Firestorm.
Really?
I've read a few of the comics and I'm kind of like, it's an okay premise. I've never read a great Firestorm comic book in my entire life. Like,
hold on a second.
Okay, you've got something. We can add this to my list of resolutions to read. Exactly.
See, I grew up reading his comics, so I bought the action figure because it looked amazing.
I think he's an amazing looking character. That's why it's like,
Yeah.
I love drawing him, but I've never really read like to me at least, an amazing or one that's really grabbed me. Firestorm comics.
No,
Every time
to
I
be
kinda read
honest,
them-
the comics, when I read the Firestorm comics, that was like being a, early teens. So at that time, it was a cool looking character, interesting. What got me was the Gil Kane did the covers for him, and I think it was Pat Broderick or something who did the art inside, which I didn't like at all, even at that age. But Gil Kane's cover got me interested. And
he's a cool character to draw. Not really a great character to read, but a cool character to draw.
That's it, yeah. Now, I do have to admit, some of the later stories that they did, depending on the artist who drew them, like, again, one of my favorites, George Perez, he drew them perfectly.
But were the stories great?
The stories were so-so.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the only thing, because again, it's the '80s comic, where he was I think they were trying to go off the what do you call it, the Spider-Man mythos, guy with personal problems, girlfriend problems, life problems, but he has superpowers.
Exactly. So he's one of the characters that goes on my list of I love drawing him, but I will not buy a comic unless somebody really recommends it. Oh no, this story's great. And if anybody knows one, leave it in the comments.
Same here, because you know what? I can't recommend a good Firestorm story, honestly.
Exactly. But he's cool.
He is, yeah.
So it's one of those things. I also somewhere, maybe not here, maybe I have it in storage, but I have a Firestorm action figure too. So
do you? Okay.
Yeah. And totally just because it's he's a cool looking character, but it's
I bought it when it first came up because I saw pictures of it. I'm going, you know what? I have to have this,
Exactly. So that's one of the things I want to do a little bit too, is draw characters that don't belong to me, but even draw characters that look cool that maybe I don't know about very much. Characters that I maybe, that I don't normally read, that I didn't read, and maybe it'll inspire me to read them. And they're not necessarily bad. Like Firestorm, I've never seen a good story. I've tried to read a few and haven't. But there's a few characters that I just don't know very well, but I think kind of look neat. So I might try and draw some of them as well.
Oh, I'm trying to think. Well, now you got me thinking. Going, you know what?
Yeah.
Oh, you got me thinking on this one now. What would I draw? Something like that.
Yeah. The other one that I draw every once in a while is Hawkman.
I've never drawn Hawkman.
Exactly. It's a lot of fun. The mask is really fun to draw.
Yeah. Now, are you doing the Golden Age version or the Silver Age?
My inspiration is sort of like when I've done it. I did a sketch in one of my sketchbooks a while back, and I sort of almost took the superpowers version, but then added more detail, like the Toth sort of really simplified version.
Oh yes, that's it. Yes.
But then added more detail just to sort of for fun, and made
The
it more
reason I asked
realistic.
is because the Golden Age version had more of a real hawk type of a look to him, like the beak and everything. Where I think Alex Toth had the more of the, what do you call it?
It's like a helmet with just
Helmet.
a cowl.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another character that I was sort of I mean I remember him from early comic books. Mostly I remember him from being in Justice League and Justice Society things. But then I thought, but I can't really say that I've ever read a good solo Hawkman comic book. He's with other characters, but
Hawkworld is an amazing comic.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, the graphic novel by Timothy Truman. It's great artwork and great story.
There you go. But he's sort of he's on the edge. He's a bit of a better character than Firestorm for me. Firestorm, like I said, I've never seen anything good. Hawkman is sort of one of those things where I'm he's been good. He's generally good when there's other characters around him.
Yes, yeah, he's a good support. Yeah, you know what? When I read Hawkworld, it was great. Yeah. Then they turned it into a monthly series, which I think I picked up maybe the first few issues and just he's a good supporting character.
Yeah. So that's my sort of thing. Is this year I'm going to just try drawing more sort of obscure and other characters. Like maybe I'll also.
Okay.
I love Gru comic books. I've never tried drawing Gru, and
Oh,
maybe
you've
tried
never
doing it. I did it like I've copied Sergio almost exactly. But what would happen if I tried to make Gru my own?
Did you see the drawings myself, Tom, Paul, and a couple of other people did? This is going back like 5-6 years ago. We were doing drawing prompts to challenge each other, and Gru was one of them.
So yeah,
He's
I wanna,
hard. He's hard to
hard.
draw in your style.
Yeah, so I might try that. So just a few things like that, like just ideas of like characters that I like the look of or even like, and just draw them. I've never really drawn a great Superman either, so I might give that a try at some point.
He's interesting to draw because, if you look on my Instagram page, I tried to draw him 2 times, 3 times in the last few years, and depends on which artist you look at for influence.
Yeah.
One time I tried drawing him after watching the animated series. Then I do want to try to draw him in the Golden Age style.
Yeah, that would be a challenge.
Now, here's a comment I'm going to make. What we're talking about. Years ago, our good friend Alan Hagen, we were doing a submission for DC. We sat together at his place and said, what, let's do 6-page submissions and we'll send it out to DC. And the story was based on Starman, DC character Starman, and having Darkseid and Granny Goodness in it.
Okay.
And the funny part is, we had no problems drawing Darkseid. We had no problems drawing Starman. Granny Goodness was an interesting character to try and draw.
Okay. I'll add that to the list.
And especially when you look at the way Jack Kirby drew her. And it's like, she's an interesting character to draw.
I'll have to add that to my list.
And I just remember Alan and I were going, both of us were like, going, why are we having a challenge drawing this lady?
Yeah, and it's sometimes the characters you don't expect,
Yeah.
So I think we have an idea about what we're going to be doing ourselves creatively for the next year. But I thought maybe we could end today's episode by talking about what we're going to do with Geek Shop in the next year. Is there any ideas you have for what you want to? I mean, I think continuing what we're doing is good. But is there any ideas or things you want to try out for Geek Shop in the next year? Throw any ideas out.
I would say I wanted, it would be good to get more creative people like us on here talking about their processes because, I know how, talking to you enough, knowing you, I know how you work, I know how I work. Everyone has a different process on, not even saying doing a comic page, but doing a pinup or illustration, and want to see what another person's ideas are like, because honestly, you know what, it could be completely different. Like like you recommended to the other person doing stick figures, and I want to see how people create stuff, and also we've been talking about doing projects from start to end, doing a full process videos and stuff like that. So more of that.
Yeah, I think so. More of a lot of what we're doing already. I think it's been working out for sure. But
yes. Now, what about you?
Well, I know that there's a slight possibility that I'll be in Canada this summer. So I look forward to the idea of possibly doing an episode together in the same room.
Oh, yes.
That would be kind of cool.
Oh, that'll be great. That'll be great.
So that's one of the goals in mind would be to try and get that happening if we can. Other than that, I definitely, it's funny, when we started this thing, there was a bit of a thought of, okay, we'll get like 5 episodes out and then we'll be like, what do we talk about next? And it hasn't even come close. Like, I think we have 3 or 4 ideas that are sort of sitting in the background that we could still do. So it's like, I feel like we're far from running out of ideas at this point.
And we still have a lot of things to do on tools of the trade.
Yeah.
Because, not tools of the trade that, professionals use, what we use, and how we use them also, and techniques.
Yeah, yeah, we could definitely do a bit more of that as well. Like, even talking about, we've talked a little bit about, like, particularly with the art supply store episode, we talked a little bit about, the supplies we like to use, but it'd be actually interesting to talk about, like, brush pens, like things like that.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
one
for sure.
subject we haven't talked about is the paper that
Yeah.
we use.
Yeah, we touched
Because,
a
I
bit
mean,
on the
a little bit, yeah.
on the art show episode, but yeah, that's a big one. The paper we use is definitely an important
Because it's interesting, because talking to creators, it's a wide range of things people use to create their comics on. Forget about digital, but old school, even sketching, drawing, creating. It could be everything from back of a photocopied paper, flyer, to everything. So we have tons of ideas.
Yeah, it's funny because you talk about paper. I did a lecture at the Goethe Institute here, and they asked me to bring some of my artwork to put up, and I actually changed paper from issue 1 of Blue Orchid to issue 2, because the first one is literally done on, like, photocopy level paper. It's like bigger, but it was like photocopy level paper, and so I put those up, and it's like, it was so weird seeing, like, the sort of, I now use sort of a harder card that takes ink a little bit better, like a Bristol type paper now, and then just see it next to, like, this photocopy paper that's all wrinkled, and 'cause it's been like more than a year since I did it and everything like that. So it's kind of cool to see that, even I progress when I'm doing a project. Sometimes I'll change papers and learn about things and advance things, and so definitely talking about paper would be a good thing to talk about in the future.
Now, anyone who's watching our episode, if you have any suggestions or recommendations, what you want us to talk about, or if you want to join us, send us a message.
Yeah, questions too. Basic questions like, how do you, it's funny, when I did my lecture, I got, like, some really interesting, very basic questions that I realized people don't know. So one person was asking me, and maybe you know this, like, I had an assumption, but why does the lettering in comic books, why is it all caps?
You know what? I had that question when I was a teenager, because some of my early, if you look at some of my Tic Toc Tom book and some of the other stuff, I used to do it, standard, started a sentence, capital, lowercase afterwards, and I was lettering it that way.
So
and then, as I read how to do comics and stuff, it's all capitals.
Yeah, and like, I this person asked, and actually it was because English is their second language, and they were like, it's actually harder to read all caps for somebody whose English is a second language, because they're used to, when they learn the proper way, and so to see something all caps is kind of weird. And the other thing they suggested was the idea too that, like, nowadays in texting, all caps means you're yelling. So
yes,
it's like
that's it. Yes,
doubly confusing. And so my answer was, and it was only like an educated guess, was that I think early letterers would study off of architectural drawing. And architectural drawing.
Yes, because you have to remember they used the Ames guide, which comes from the architectural background.
And so I think that it's because it's, the basics of it started with architectural type things. So they just copied what architects did, which is they do it the same reason that you fill out, like when you're doing an official form for the government, they say put in all caps because it makes it sort of clear block letters is easier to read.
But you have to remember, with, let's say, blueprints and things like that from the old days, it was at the bottom corner where they did the, most of the block lettering and stuff like that. But again, like you said, someone whose English is a second language, and you have 22 pages of all caps. Yeah, you're right. It's like, why are you screaming at me?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like simple questions. So if people have questions like that, I don't know if we can answer them, but we can at least give an educated guess on
I'm gonna pull up some of my old stuff, and I do remember, I do remember clearly having that thinking, going, should I be doing it all caps, or should I just do it way I'm taught to write?
Yep. So there's an amazing question that completely stumped me in front of
okay. You know what? That's gonna be another episode.
Lettering for sure.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's gonna do some research. I'm gonna do some research on that one.
I invite it. I will gladly listen to your lecture about why comic books yell at us.
But here's the thing also. Now, I know we could go on more and more on this, but now with the digital age and digital lettering, kind of surprised that they're still doing it that way.
I think it's just, it's one of those things where it's like, you ask people, there's this great story about a family that had a lamb dinner, and the wife cuts off the end of the lamb, the bone on the lamb, and puts it in the oven. And the husband goes, why do you cut the bone off of the end of the lamb? And she says, oh, well, that's the way my mother did it, and that's how she does it best. And so the husband was like, well, that's a weird thing to do. And so then they called her mother and said, why did you cut why do you cut the end of the bone of the lamb off? And she said, well, it doesn't fit in my oven. So it's like, so the only reason that
so it's a tradition.
It's just a tradition. So it may not make sense, but just everybody's been doing it. So at this point, everybody just keeps doing it.
I think that's it with the lettering because, and also if you look at it, my thinking is visually looking when you open a comic, having the same size lettering, maybe it's easier for the eye to go across the page.
I don't know, but I think we should stop talking about this because we're already getting
we're
recording our next episode at the end of this.
Yes. Okay, so anyone who has any suggestions for any future Geek Shop episodes, please message us. And again, if you want to join us, you're always welcome to.
Thanks, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Take care.